October 1918, the Argonne Forest, France. This was not a landscape carved by nature. It was a geography of industrialized carnage. Shattered trees stood like wooden skeletons. The ground was a churned, acidic soup of mud, shell casings, and the countless dead. This was the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the final, brutal American push to end the war. And it was a battle fought against gravity, against mud, and against the crushing psychological weight of the unseen. Our hero was Sergeant Elias, pioneer, Thorne, 35 years old. A career difference in this war. He was old enough to remember peace. Before the war, Thorne was a quiet, meticulous forestry surveyor from Montana. He knew the difference between a white pine and a spruce by touch. He understood how a river carved a valley. He carried that profound internal knowledge of the earth into the war. He was an outsider, a silent man respected for his skills, not his aggression. On this day, Thorne led a small, desperate patrol. Their mission? Retrieve a downed dispatch runner. The runner carried the crucial coordinates for a massive planned artillery barrage, the final effort to break a stubborn German line. The American division was stalled, and the window for the barrage was closing fast. As Thorne's patrol pushed into a ravine near the Argonne Mill, they weren't met by machine gun fire, they were met by the insidious silent terror of chemical warfare. The air turned heavy, tasting of anise and metallic ruin. Phosgene gas, a silent killer that attacked the lungs and promised a slow internal drowning. The patrol immediately dove for their gas masks. Thorne helped secure the mask on the wounded runner. But in the frantic, suffocating confusion, a German artillery shell struck just yards away, scattering the area with high-velocity shrapnel. A shard tore through the runner's mask canister, hissing. The deadly gas was seeping in. Thorne saw the tiny, fatal hole. He looked at the runner, already half-conscious, and he looked at his own functioning mask. He did the thing no rational soldier would do. He ripped his own mask off and used it, bulky and precious, to firmly seal the leak on the runner's face. His action was a death sentence. The gas, the invisible poison, was already in the air, already finding the pathways into his lungs. He handed his command to his lieutenant and pushed on, his strength now fueled by raw, terrifying desperation. He navigated the choking haze by memory, by the sound of an unseen creek, the landmarks only he, the surveyor, could recognize. He made it out, message in hand, but the chemical poison had done its work. The ultimate price of his heroism wasn't a wound you could stitch. It was a wound that stole his breath and a wound that stole his voice. Elias Thorne's world before 1917 was defined by silence, not war. Born in the Montana Territory, he was the son of a settler, raised to understand the value of land, patience, and measurement. His life's work was the creation of maps, the meticulous process of taming the wilderness through knowledge. He was a reserved man who believed in a moral contract with the natural world. He carried a small, leather-bound notebook with him everywhere, not for war plans, but for recording tree species, soil acidity, and geological features. He married late to a woman named Clara, who appreciated his quiet strength, and they had a daughter named after the river that ran through their property. Thorne did not rush to war. He was 35 when he enlisted, his heart far from the trenches. He went because he believed in order, and the German advance across Europe was to him a profound violation of order. He went to fight for a return to the quiet, predictable life he had built. The military quickly recognized his unique technical skills. He could read the terrain like a book, predict the stability of a trench, and understand the subtle wind shifts that would affect artillery fire. They utilized him, but they never truly understood him.
He was a specialist in a world of generalists, a quiet intellectual surrounded by brute force. This was the first hardship he faced, having his refined technical knowledge reduced to scouting or recon.
The gas attack was not immediately fatal, but its effects were cruel and permanent. Phosgene caused fluid to collect in Thorne's lungs, a delayed chemical drowning. He was evacuated to a military hospital where doctors marveled that he hadn't succumbed instantly. He recovered physically enough to return home, but the price was devastating. His vocal cords were permanently damaged, his lungs scarred and operating at a fraction of their capacity. His once deep, resonant surveyor's voice was reduced to a hoarse, gasping whisper, sometimes nothing at all. His act of heroism, securing the runner's mask, was quickly recorded and lauded. His commanding officer wrote a recommendation for the Distinguished Service Cross, citing his valor and self-sacrifice. But the paperwork stalled. In the chaotic demobilization of late 1918 and 1919, records were lost, priorities shifted, and the attention of the American people moved quickly from the trenches to the roaring 20s. Thorne's recommendation, like countless others, simply vanished into the bureaucracy of a rapidly shrinking military. The irony was that the American public embraced the image of the heroic, hardy doughboy. Thorne, the gassed veteran who could barely speak, was a living embodiment of the war's ugly, unromantic truth. He was acknowledged for his service, but not for his unique sacrifice. The medal disappeared, leaving him with only the hardship of silence. Thorne returned home and tried to reclaim his old life. He went back to surveying, but the silence was a constant, frustrating barrier. He could no longer call out commands to his crew. He could no longer speak long technical explanations to clients. The only place he was fully articulate was in his maps, which became obsessively detailed, filled with silent information. His relationship with his wife, Clara, changed profoundly. Their love deepened into a profound, painful empathy. Their communication became a language of touch, gesture, and shared, knowing glances. Clara often spoke for him, translating his harsh whispers to the outside world.
He never became bitter about the missing medal. He saw his hardship as a consequence of his choice, and his reward was internal. He had saved the runner, and more importantly, he had ensured the delivery of the coordinates that saved a division. That quiet, unheralded truth was enough. However, his life took on a new, unacknowledged duty, a profound, personal penance. Because his illness limited his physical labor, he began volunteering his time to work with wounded veterans, teaching them his trade, how to read a compass, how to measure the land. He taught them in silence, demonstrating with his hands, believing that helping them rebuild their lives was the only way to justify the life he still had. He could not tell them his story, but he could show them how to survive the silence. Sergeant Elias Thorne died in 1965, long before his service records would be revisited by future generations. He died having built a quiet, honorable life, leaving behind a family that understood the profound strength of his character. He died without the Distinguished Service Cross, without the public acknowledgement of his bravery. But his story is a testament to the fact that the greatest acts of courage in war are often the silent ones. It wasn't the sound of his charge that mattered. It was the silent choice he made to sacrifice his health, his career, and his voice to save a single life and ensure the mission's success. The legacy of the doughboy is often cast in the booming shouts of commanders. Thorne's legacy is found in the power of the whisper. He reminds us that the man who understands the silent language of the earth, who can see the value of a single fragile life against the backdrop of industrial slaughter, is perhaps the most courageous hero of all. He was a man who returned home with an invisible wound, a man who, by his silence, taught those around him the enduring truth that duty is its own medal.